All right, a year in review and the minds of tennis players. Welcome to the Bagels and Breadsticks podcast. I'm Richard.
And I am Logan.
And we are on episode 12 now, which is kind of crazy.
Yes,
and at 12 weeks now.
Yeah, and at the end of this tennis season, we are still confirming we are still fans of tennis.
Yeah.
We are still
Although we
really good
may
fans of
be
tennis.
teetering.
We're teetering. Yeah, we'll see if this podcast changes subjects radically in the future.
Oh, full sarcasm. I want that disclaimer right now. But yeah, we're going to finish our year in review. I'm going to pose just one quick question for the both of us, and that's let's go through a lot of the big names from this past season, and I just want to do kind of like a pro-con debate in a way, kind of like, what did they do well this past season that they need to continue, or what's something that they need to improve on, just generally their game or how they did this year, like something to improve. And I mean, I think there's no more fitting place to begin with than our number ones, and that's Iga Swiatek and Carlos Alcaraz.
Right, yeah.
So let's take it off with the easy one, Iga.
Yeah.
There's so much that she did right that she needs to continue. If she can do another one of those long runs, I mean, obviously it's going to be a big pressure for her next year because when she goes back to those tournaments, she needs to defend her points, and we need to see what happens there.
Exactly. I would argue, sort of going off of that any real cons from her game this year sort of were derivations of pressure in some sort of form. Were they not? I mean, I could attribute at least partial of her WTA finals results to pressure, and also her being kind of dropped number one at the beginning of the year. So I guess, yeah, like you said, it's just kind of like being able to maintain that
Mm-hmm.
also in itself is to try to fix and sort of callous herself sort of in the arena of being a number one player.
Yeah. I mean, you made a really good point. A lot of those kind of slip-ups that she made, you can definitely attribute to pressure. Being world number one and, trying to live up to that title, but also the more she wins, the more pressure it becomes. Like, it's awesome, but it's also a lot of pressure. Like, how can they continue? And
yeah, but both of those qualities go because she'll get more experience, so she'll get more comfortable sort of with this sort of legion of opponents that she's going to be facing for the next 10 years.
But this year she won 2 Grand Slams. It wasn't her first one.
Right.
But on the opposite side, you have Carlos Alcaraz, who this was his first one back in the U.S. Open, and a lot of his first came this year between first time world number one, first Masters 1000 title, first Grand Slam title. So what did he do right, and what does he need to improve on?
Well, see, that exactly what you're saying is why I think for him the battle might be a little more difficult. I'd say because he hasn't seen such consistent success, and of course he's a younger player, getting his first slam. So I think it's pretty much some similar things.
I think the big question is going to be how his injury is going to start the season
big
for him.
Yeah,
because I think with somebody that plays the way he does, we talked about it before about how good he is on hard court. Seeing how he can fare if he does play, hopefully he will play at the Australian Open.
Yeah.
And how he'll do there. We already know he's not going to play at the United Cup. So let's see how he can fare on the, in the heat on the courts in Australia. That beginning of the year swing, all being on hard court, how he can kind of come back from that injury. Because we saw him out for the remainder of the end of this season. Let's see how he can bounce back. I think what he needs to continue is momentum. You never really, once we saw him show up, there was no kind of, I don't know how to describe it, but
are you saying he needs to like find his consistency?
He was still there. Like, it was never, he kind of disappeared. He never disappeared
no,
fully.
he didn't,
Like, he was always there to some extent, and that's
right.
good. I mean, you're not going to win every single tournament.
Of course,
you won't. Even Iga lost finals, semis, whatever.
Yeah.
You're not going to win every tournament. But to have that presence there, he was still there. He maintained his ranking. He showed up. And then he finished off strong at the U.S. Open. So I think what he needs to improve on is not within, honestly, I don't think it's within his power. It's his experience. That's just going to come with time.
Right.
But somebody who doesn't need experience is next, and that's Rafa.
Yes.
No shortage of experience.
Right. I think for him, it's just going to be kind of like staying on top of his game athletically, and sort of like, because we've seen great stuff from Rafa this year, and I have no reason to expect that to go away at all next year. I think so. Just for him to sort of like continue training and to continue sort of like, honing himself there should sort of see his play style and his game overall to just kind of stay sort of where it is. I think it's hard to see him improving. He might, and that would be awesome to see him like have this like elevated level of success next year. But I think for me it was those two things.
I think when it comes to improvement, there is one thing that he needs to do, and it's something that we've seen be so difficult for him throughout his career, and it's keeping his body physically fit.
Yeah.
When it comes to the big three, he is extremely injury prone when you compare him to Roger or Novak. And so we saw it a few times throughout this year. We know he's probably, it looks like as of now, he's declared to play at the United Cup, which is going to be, good for him.
Yeah.
But I think overall, if he can keep his body physically fit, a physically fit Rafa can do insane things.
Yeah. And especially since I think that the United Cup, I think you and I agreed that it kind of marks the sort of beginning of this new season and sort of how we're going to sort of see how new players or old players will sort of come back and sort of establish themselves. I think because it's starting early, it's going to sort of help him to sort of like maintain that, if that makes sense. Get his gears going just a little early. That might sort of help him stay a little more fit. Although it does, again, because it's more playtime, make him more injury prone. So I guess just making sure he's careful there, because I do agree wholeheartedly with that.
Yeah. Well, let's move on
Yes.
to Ons Jabeur, who she had a really, really great year.
She really did.
Broke through.
Yeah. It was great to see her like have a lot of success this year. But I think what sticks out to me as something that she needs to improve on, I don't know, is finishing. I think because I've seen her do great in a lot of tournaments, but like I don't know, I haven't seen her go all the way like sometimes where like she needs to, like especially with this like the WTA finals, and she lost in the US Open finals. I mean, I believe that she can, but I think it's just like pushing herself that little extra mile.
Well, she definitely got a lot of runner-up trophies this year.
Yes.
The U.S. Open, I believe Rome. She did win in Madrid, which was a big win for her.
Yes, she did.
But between Rome, Wimbledon, and the U.S. Open, she garnered a lot of runner-up trophies.
Mm-hmm.
So to a definite extent, I definitely agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
Finishing at those big moments is going to be crucial if she wants to move up and get up there. I think she looks really good heading into next year.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a real breakthrough year for her, and she's a really fun player to watch just because of the way that she plays.
I was gonna say we've had a discussion kind of about like her play style and like its uniqueness kind of in the tour, and yeah.
But I think I definitely agree with you. Finishing in those big moments is going to be big.
Mm-hmm.
I would say to a certain extent as well, definitely being a bit more aggressive. Her game relies on such an awesome level of craft and tact, but I think what needs to improve if anything, is finishing points. Really coming in with more aggression, more strength. She does already, but if she can kind of increase that, it would only make her so much better. I think part of the reason why she loses, when you look at her losses against Swiatek, against Rybakina in those three big tournaments that we mentioned earlier, a lot of it comes down to how aggressively her opponent was playing, and that's kind of what made the difference. If you looked at Rybakina throughout Wimbledon, if you looked at Iga through the U.S. Open and throughout Rome, there was a level of aggression and finishing points quickly, not really letting Ons get to the tact and the craft and drop shots and different moments where she gets to employ that insane touch. That's what it's going to come down to sometimes, is being aggressive, finishing those points off.
I get what you mean. Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, I mean, let's move down to Casper Ruud, who also had a really awesome year this year.
He did also have a really awesome year. What was this? This was his first year in the top 10, wasn't it?
First or second?
But this is I mean this year obviously was great for him. Two finals,
two Grand Slam finals. I mean,
which his first and second appearance sort of in the finals as well, which is great.
At the French and at the U.S. and then the finals of the Tour finals.
Yes,
as well.
Which was great for him. I think going into
I think for him it's probably going to be a similar message than Franz Jabeur.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Finishing in those big moments.
Yeah.
I mean, he's done so well, but again, a lot of finalist trophies in some pretty crucial tournaments. Between the U.S. Open, between the French Open, between the Tour finals, other Masters 1000s. He's had a great year, but again, finishing in those big moments, really being able to focus on himself and really,
I think,
kind of, I don't know, it's weird because it's weird when you kind of think about it because you get so much awesome momentum throughout, and then when it comes to the finals and you just kind of drop it off.
Yeah.
And
I don't know. I think he needs to...
I think when you do it multiple times in major tournaments, it should tell you something, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, we've talked about this, is that, like, he doesn't have, like, a consistent momentum in tournaments. You know what I mean? And I feel like sort of being able to sort of, like, I don't know, like, establish himself and play more consistently, I sort of would help his game a little. Because I think his game has a lot of really good, like, pros to it. Like, he has good, like, placement, I've noticed. And I like his forehand technique is really good. But it's, like, the aggression... that I think he needs to work on as well. We talked about that too. And I think just the consistency for me in terms of like his like game going into next year.
Yeah. And then we'll head over to the women's side for Annette Kontaveit. I don't know. Personally, this was just a weird one for me.
Yeah.
I personally... I don't know what to say. Annette Kontaveit, just overall, she was pretty consistent in making pretty deep runs in tournaments. Fourth round, quarterfinals. Am I crazy?
We might be looking at a wrong finals
Well, I know
list.
those top threes are correct.
Okay.
Except for the women's, except for that women's tour right there.
Mm-hmm. But yes, no. I'm not sure how I feel about Kontaveit. But I remember seeing her. She was at I think number 2 was her highest, sort of earlier this September, I believe. And I was not.
I don't know how
expecting that.
But yeah, no, Logan's right. Thank you for correcting me. No, but let's talk about it. She was number 2 in the world.
Yeah.
Very consistent in making deep runs in tournaments.
Yeah. Sorry, I looked at.
There needs to be more. I mean, she needs to go deeper. That's all. I mean, to consistently be getting quarterfinals, semifinals, that's great until you realize that you are not going to kind of end with, the reputation that you kind of want to. You know, when you look at someone like Iga Swiatek, I mean, this year alone, she was definitely the best, and you're going to look at her and you're going to remember slam titles, the long run, and there's nothing much to be said about Kontaveit just because she didn't get those big titles. She needs to be much more consistent in winning titles. Winning specifically.
Yeah, I need to see more presence from her.
She needs to win some big titles,
Yeah. That's really all I have to say with Kontaveit.
I had a feeling you were looking at the wrong thing when I looked at number 3 and I didn't see this correct name, but Jessie Pegula.
Yeah. I looked at 3 and I was like, Kontaveit is a good player. But I don't remember her finishing rank 3. So now to the actual rank 3, which is just Jessie Pegula. She had a great year.
Yeah.
She had a really great year. I just don't think, she finished with quite the expectations we hoped for. And I don't know if that's necessarily, something that's directly associated with, like, her like, game as a whole, But, do you have anything to start off with there?
She's had a really good year. She got her first WTA 1000 title. Some pretty good results. Made the quarterfinals of the U.S. Open. Um, a lot of pretty deep runs in big tournaments. Again, quarterfinals at the French.
Mm-hmm.
A good year for her. I think, I hate to say it, but finishing. She
Yeah.
had one major title of this year at Guadalajara, and beyond that, a lot of really deep runs. Needs to finish more. Has been playing really well, has been constantly improving. We've seen her play a lot more aggressively, which was really great, and really kind of come into her own in her singles game. On the doubles side, it's tough to play both singles and doubles at the same time.
Oh, it really is, yeah.
And when you look at her and Coco Gauff, which I want to jump to next, it's really impressive when somebody can continue form on both the singles and double side, and to finish ranked within the top 10 of both is definitely very impressive.
Exactly, and she's seen a consistent rise in the rankings, throughout this year, and that's impressive.
But let's move to
Yes,
Coco.
to Coco Gauff.
I mean,
Who I would agree, I would say such similar things.
I'm actually not going to say the finishing thing.
Really?
Because for me, what needs to be realized when you look at differences between the people that we just
She
talked
needs
about
experience,
was this,
too.
is when you look at the ages
Yeah.
between Casper Ruud and Pagula and Jabeur. They all have a 2 at the beginning of that. While Coco is still in her teens.
Yes.
There's a lot of experience that's needed there.
Also, I should
And
mention
with
Coco finished 7th, by the way.
Yes. And
Yes.
with experience will come more confidence.
Right.
That's what she needs. She needs more confidence. There's
Because I do think she has potential to be finishing really strong.
I mean, to be 17, 18 years old and already make your first Grand Slam final, that's huge.
That's crazy.
But I think that shows her skill, but now what's needed is the mental. And it's funny because we're going to talk about that later on. But you look at Coco, and there needs to be more confidence, more kind of assertiveness on the court. She knows she's good. Now she really needs to employ it.
And we did kind of see that epitomized in the finals the couple weeks ago,
Yeah, for sure. You looked at how she played, and there seemed to be less confidence. Despite
100%.
how good she is. A lot of deep runs, a lot of quarterfinals. Some really awesome results. Obviously, that finals at the French Open was huge for her. And I think that started to put her on a really good trajectory of believing in herself, which is, again, a
Very
big thing
important.
that she needed.
Yeah.
But I think she's on a good track. I think she needs to take the opportunity of the United Cup and for those pre-Australian Open tournaments to really gain more of that.
Yeah, I think that fixing that
confidence
just comes from
and-
playing more and kind of trying to
The more she plays and the more she wins,
Yeah.
she's going to come into her own much more.
100%. And I believe that she can win. So I think that she just needs to keep going, and then we'll see her do maybe even better in 23.
Well, now I want to move a bit back up to number 4 and finish off on the women's side with Caroline Garcia, who had a really awesome end to her year.
Yeah, I
And
could
if
not
she
think of a
can
better
play-
ending for her this year.
If she can play like that second half of the year, that's ideal. If I'm not mistaken, semifinals at the U.S. Open.
To my knowledge, yes.
The win at the Tour Finals. Some really, really, really great results for her. She just needs to continue the same way that she ended last year.
Right.
There's not much cons here.
Which is very
can't
promising.
Play much better than she did. Was aggressive on returns, kept points short. She did pretty much what you kind of aim for, when it comes to consistent winning on tour.
Right. Yeah.
Even when it went to those longer rallies, she knew how to transition defense, offense, come back into her own, and then finish off the point. There were so many moments where she was the star, and she just needs to take that momentum that she finished with and run with it. She has an awesome opportunity at the United Cup. I hope she plays at least one tournament before the Australian Open, and that's going to set her up for a really good trajectory
Oh my
start
goodness.
off next year.
Yes. Do you have any cons necessarily, sort of things that she thinks that she should probably work on?
I don't think so.
I was gonna say because I'm struggling with specifics. I don't know.
It's kind of
Maybe
spur
just
of the moment decisions. When she loses matches, it seems to be kind of the off day, if that makes sense.
yeah.
And that's a very like small league in my opinion. It's her and Ego right now where I don't see much things to improve. It's just kind of like
Sure,
spur of the
yeah.
moment decisions.
And sort of you can argue then with her, it's kind of like the pressure to keep up with this momentum.
Definitely.
And I hope that doesn't reach her in any sort of way.
Yeah. I mean, it's the first time in a while that she's ranked as high as she is.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's definitely going to be a lot. I mean, the last time she was ranked within the top 10 at year end was back in 2017 when she was ranked 8th year end. So I think, she's been ranked higher. She's 4 now. She's been 4 before. But it's been a while. It's been a few years. So definitely, like you said, kind of getting used to being back at the top and how she can do with that. But speaking of being at the top, there's one man that knows a lot about that, and that's Novak. What do you think about Novak?
I think for him, I'm gonna just start off by being real and saying I don't know if I can think of any immediate things he needs to work on with his game.
Yeah.
I just think
there's nothing.
I think we're gonna see him shoot up past. He's 5th, by the way. We're gonna skip up. I think he's gonna skip up to like I don't know, but he's definitely gonna see a higher finish next year than this year, 100%.
Well, here's what I'm gonna say. I think the important key for him is going to be continuing consistency over periods where he might not get a chance to play.
That's fair.
If a country doesn't let him play,
for whatever reason,
he needs to be able to continue the momentum going over that break. Because, I mean, he had a few breaks this year of times where he just wasn't playing, where he couldn't play, and he needed to continue that momentum over, and he did a good job with it.
And maybe if I want to, I'm pulling this out of thin air here, because I know we talk sometimes about like a key sort of like thing that people need to keep in mind when playing Novak is that they sort of should try to keep points shorter.
Oh yeah.
So maybe he could try to like figure out like some way to make that less of an issue, and sort of like try to like, I guess, be more immediate.
I mean, for him, it's gonna be a matter of can he, how good can he be defensively?
Right.
I mean, because that's what it comes down to. Continuing points and
Right.
making them go longer, it's going to come down to how you do defensively. And if he does well defensively, he's going to keep those points going, and the longer they go, the better
I have immense confidence in him as a defender. Also, I hope that his mental game stays strong. I know that there's a couple instances this last year that might have shown up in your feed somewhere where sort of he was having a moment or two kind of where he had to like take a breather, said to himself, so I guess just not letting those moments get to his head too much, get to his game too much, I think is also a big thing. But
I think also just overall when you look at him, and this is specifically comparative to the big three, is reducing outbursts. He's usually the one he is the one of the three that will ever break a racket. So, I mean... just cooling the emotions and the emotional side. I guess if anything, you're right.
Speaking of the one of some of the people who might break rackets, do you want to talk about Stefanos, who's at number 4?
Sure.
Finishing this,
if you want to, go
this
for
year.
it.
Well, I don't know. Well, because I don't know. I think I need. He
needs to cool his emotions.
He does. And as a player, I think he's talented. I think he's really talented. I just need to be more confident in him, I think, because I think he does kind of like, I think he is his own worst enemy, and I think that is easily his major sort of thing for me, is sort of figuring out a way to like hunker down and to like finish games like strongly, like composed. Staying composed, I think, for him is very key for his game.
And here's where I'm going to add on to that.
Yeah.
One word: endurance.
Yes.
You need to be able to, if you're going to compete at the top of men's tennis, you need to be able to go for 4 or 5 hours and not stop. And it's a tough thing to do,
Yeah.
but it's the tough reality
I know.
of playing 5 sets. If you go down 2, you have to be able, if you want to win, you have to be able to continue 3 more sets
Exactly.
and not let off.
Like, I've seen this man play some of the finest tennis of his life, and then like be up 2 sets, and then just like find a way to kind of like, I guess, not finish, you know. And I totally agree that endurance is huge for him.
Well, I'm gonna like take that endurance and I'm gonna move that to another person that I have that message for, and that's Taylor Fritz in the American. So I'm gonna combine.
Who, by the way, finished 9 this year.
I'm actually gonna combine Taylor Fritz and Francis Tiafoe here.
And Francis Tiafoe, where did he finish? He finished 19th this year.
So I think these 2 guys, they're young and they're starting to really, really show up in the big key moments, and that's really good. But they need endurance. You look at their 2 big Grand Slam losses: Fritz against Rafa at Wimbledon, and Tiafoe against Alcaraz in the semifinals of the U.S. Open. Both key moments, deep, late into tournament. They're tired, they're exhausted, and they have to go the distance. It comes down to being able to outlast.
Right.
I know I've said you can't outlast Novak, and that goes for a lot of the experienced players on tour, but you need to be able to outlast yourself.
Yes, that's a good point.
And if you let the fatigue hit you, you're going to lose. That is just the straight unfortunate fact. And the guys that don't have as much experience making deep runs into tournaments, I mean, this is the first time that we saw Taylor and Francis really, really make deep runs into Grand Slams where they need to play those 5 sets out.
And we've seen them play great in these finals, you know, despite sort of the fatigue. So it kind of leads you to think, you know, kind of what would have happened if they had sort of had a little more control sort of their energy. And experience. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, in my opinion, if you took Francis and he had some more experience in that semifinal, it could have gone his way. You never know. He had the home crowd behind him.
No, that's fair.
You never know what could have happened.
That's fair.
But you look at these 2 guys, if they had more experience, if they had, you know, more endurance, they definitely could make a big splash next year.
Because I think they both have very, you know, good and unique and interesting games. Yeah. You know, and sort of like, I guess just sort of like strengthening themselves sort of will be the best way to kind of use those games.
Yeah.
And to sort of perform better in 23.
But talking about experience, let's talk about Felix.
Felix, he finished at 6.
Which is huge.
Yes.
I think
this is his highest, right?
When you look at the Canadians between Felix and Shapo, there's always been a question of, will they ever make it to the top? Will they be able to do it?
Because I remember there was a point where Shapo was 10th in the world. Yes. I remember there was that. But he didn't stay there.
I think Felix is going to be a major threat in Melbourne.
Yeah.
I think depending on how he does at the United Cup, he's going to be a major threat at Melbourne. Had a pretty strong finish of the year, winning the Davis Cup for his country.
Yes.
We even forgot to mention, Canada swept the international, what do you call it, tournaments, titles this year.
Oh,
they won the ATP Cup and the Davis Cup.
Wow.
He
the
had
events.
a strong end to the year with strong results across the board. A lot of smaller title wins across the end of the year. Made the tour finals. Strong finish with the Davis Cup. I think if he can do well and pick up that form again in the United Cup and in those smaller tournaments before the Australian Open, he can be a major threat to win.
I think so too. I think his game is phenomenal. He has great movement. He hits really deep. His serves are really powerful. I also kind of
think
he's
much more aggressive this year.
He is, and I've always kind of like seen his form as tailoring to sort of a more aggressive play style. So that's great. I think for me though, something that I feel like I should add is his success was very momentum based. I think at least historically. So I think kind of just making sure that he's able to kind of like refresh himself and pick him up sort of with each tournament kind of like as an individual right? And maybe using momentum off of victories and sort of being able to refresh after losses, I think will sort of like help him to kind of like maintain his position here and to sort of not be sort of based on momentum, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah. I don't know. I think there were so many improvements with his game. Now it's going to be, I'm going to continue the endurance train.
You are? Okay.
I am, but with Felix is a bit more severe in my opinion than with the other guys.
Well, he is he is a very high energy, player. So, I mean, that makes sense.
Because his inability to finish in the moments where he needed to, I think that I would blame it on fatigue. When he's in a high intensity match and he got to the end of that match and it's time to finish and close it out, it felt like he was getting a bit tired. Like he was letting off the gas a little bit. But that's the moment where you really need to kick it in and go full speed and really hit the gas there.
Yeah.
Rather than, take some off. So, I don't know. I think for him, he needs to continue what he's doing, but increase the energy, the endurance, the experience. And once he's done that, he's going to be a huge player, in future years. Especially if we can continue playing this way. The big thing for all of these guys is making sure that they don't drop their form.
Yeah, because I do, with a good handful of the players that we've been talking about, I have great confidence sort of in their form alone to the to the point where, I'm confident that expanding on that next year will be great for them. And he is definitely one of those people.
Yeah. Do you have any other players?
Any other players? I'm
looking at a certain number 11 right here.
You're looking at a certain number 11? Uh-oh. He's on the cusp, Mr. Holgeroon.
I mean,
do you want to? It seems like you're ready to go.
He was just very impressive this past, not even year, but the past month.
Yeah,
the past month or two.
Yeah.
I mean, he moved up the rankings from outside the top 100 into the top 15. He's now sitting at 11, which is huge.
Yeah,
and I think,
oh my God,
if he can do the same thing he did in Paris moving forward. The way he played.
That's a lot to ask for. But, I mean, if he did it once, he can do it again. I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
We'll see.
We'll see what happens, but I definitely think what makes him stand out of the other, one big title winners is the fact that he was so consistent over the first part of the year that he was able to make that steady rise from outside the top 100 into the top 15. So, continuing the way he did in Paris will be huge for him.
I think if you would have asked me about Holgeroon back in September, I kind of would have given you such a different answer. I would have sort of given you that angle of, I have confidence in him, as a player, right? And I expect him to do good in the coming years.
Yeah.
But he's doing good now, and that's crazy. The fact that he's shortened my expectations by that much, and he's doing as good as he is right now. And I think him carrying this into 2023 is going to be very interesting.
But a big thing about continuing momentum and, continuing your form throughout tournaments is the psychological side. So let's start tapping into that. I don't know where to start things off. I mean, what do you think is keeping yourself kind of in the moment and confident, but also not putting too much pressure on yourself.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing when it comes to playing at such a high level. You look at, so many players have started to look towards sports psychologists.
Right.
I mean, Iga Swiatek even hired one onto her traveling team.
And I think that's huge. I think because I don't know, psychology in sport, like you were saying, or at least alluding to, is that it's this unique kind of balance that sort of changes, depending on where you are, right? And I don't know, it's the pressure of experience sort of versus the inexperience. It's always going to be there. It's just going to be there in different forms. And I think more players should, figure out getting sports psychologists. I can name a few.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I see a lot of great players that we could mention, but I think it's so generalized that a lot of great players I feel could have their game easily strengthened if they were just more composed, right? And had just a better mental game
It's not only composure; it's also just confidence. How some
Oh
players
yeah.
that don't need the psychologist for composure need it to keep pressure off of them.
Yeah, I
to
think
keep
some of
them
our
in the
more
moment.
reserved players on the tour have a lot of like confidence sort of related things in there too. Yeah.
But I think, let me ask you this question. I mean,
Yeah.
have there been big moments for you as a player where you need to really kind of like hunker down and kind of reflect on yourself and keep yourself in the moment? Because it definitely has
Yeah.
been for me.
Yeah. Oh, for sure, for sure. I remember freshman year, in playing high school varsity tennis, I lost to this kid who played like a wall, and I was really mad, and I didn't say a word for an entire day. I was
Yep.
so mad. I was like,
I mean,
oh,
my senior
yeah.
my senior year. I mean, I was the captain of my high school
Uh-huh.
team my senior year. I
Yeah.
remember playing this guy that was so unorthodox. Every shot was either a slice or a lob, and it infuriated me.
I hate those players so much.
I remember coming off the court and looking at like my teammates, and they just looked at me, and
Yeah,
they just
yeah.
watched me, and I just like you could see steam coming out of me, and I just like tunnel vision, just walked straight onto the other courts and was like, you need to pick up my slack right now. And I just went like full coach mode, and I was like,
Yeah.
we need to pick it up. But I remember, I mean, there have been some pretty hefty losses for me in the past. I mean, I remember I have a very bad record in championship games.
Yeah.
I
Ooh.
went to
Me too, actually.
I went to 2 championship games my
Yeah.
freshman and sophomore year. I mean, unfortunately, we lost our junior years because of COVID, but I feel like if we went to the championship in my senior year, it would have been much better. Like, I mean, my freshman and sophomore year, I was a lot more kind of expressive and a lot
Yeah.
more kind of hot-headed.
Uh-huh.
I mean, my freshman year, that championship final was rough. I remember we were going up. I was playing first doubles, and we were going up against this pair, this team that was our biggest rivals. And I
Uh-huh.
remember, I was up at net. I went in for a volley, and I was hitting an approach shot, and I was moving up, and I accidentally hit the guy across the net. And I remember, like, I went up and I apologized and everything, and I just heard him mutter to his teammate, "Oh, I'm gonna take that guy's head off," and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" So for the rest of the game, whenever I was up at net, he just whammed it at me, like he was trying to kill me. And I remember looking over at one of the teachers that came to the final to support us, and I was like, "Listen, Mr. Blank," I was like, "I can't do for."
He needs a sports psychologist.
We're gonna put Mr. Smith. For example,
sure,
I was like,
yeah.
Mr. Smith, I can't do this. You need to get like a ref here. You need to stop this. Like, we can't do this.
Yeah.
Like, you need to get someone to watch this guy, so that if he does like do this, like they get like proper action or something. Like,
Yeah.
but
Oh
I
my
don't know.
God.
Like, I was also really hot headed because there was like, I remember we lost that one just so close. We lost 3-2.
Right.
And I remember none of the guys from the opposing team came up to us after winning, like shook our hands, nothing. Like the handshake at the
Yikes.
net after
Oh my God.
the handshake at the net after our match was so frosty cold. Like, I was looking at this guy like, if looks could kill, we'd both be dead. Like, we were looking at each other so heavily. And I remember looking over my partner, and like, God bless him, like, he did such a good job at keeping me calm down.
Uh-huh.
That was a big thing, like, those 2 years, was having a partner, and I think that's something that's helpful in doubles. I don't know if you can mention this before I get to my second story, but I think having a partner in doubles that can kind of level you out is really, really helpful.
100%. I think, well, I had this whole arc, in my 4 years of playing varsity tennis, where, like, I was such a hothead, and I was, like, and that culminated in me playing my entire sophomore season with, like a crappy left ankle. I wore a brace the entire season, and it was awful. My maneuverability was shot, and I was mad at myself constantly. I was like smacking the thing with my racket to wake my foot up, and I was like,
gosh.
No, it was just awful. But I sort of became, I think I've always been more relaxed in doubles. I also have seen limited championship success. I went to our state doubles finals with
Yeah.
my friend. We were 3-4 that year though, so that was really cool that we ended up going.
For us, we
But-
did 2 state championships, 1 state semifinal, and we won one of those state championships. That was sophomore year.
Nice.
And it was really fun because, okay, here's why I like the way school tennis is set up is because it is a team and you are working together.
Yeah, I
and so in
like
high
that.
school,
It's
In high
fun.
school, it's 3 singles and 2 doubles,
Uh-huh.
at least for us. And so I remember our 2 singles had won. I remember we moved the lineup around because
Yeah?
some guys had some confidence against certain players on their team. So they're like, let's switch around so we feel more confident. And my doubles partner and I, we went into that championship game. We went in. We were 12-0 at the time, and we were pumped. We were ready. We had beaten these guys twice. This was a huge school that we were ready to play against. And again, hothead coming in. These guys there were 2 schools in our league that were known for not being the most sportsmanlike, and
Yeah.
and funnily enough, we played them in both championship games.
Oh yeah, okay.
And then the second one, I remember the semifinal when we finished. These guys came up to net. I was a sophomore. My partner was a freshman, and so they came up to net and they go like, "Oh, good game." And we shook hands and they go, "What? How old are you guys?" And I go, "Sophomore." He goes, "Freshman." And they look at us just like deadpan. They're like, sorry. Say that again. Say that again. And he goes, and I go, "Sophomore."
Yeah.
My partner goes, "Freshman." And he goes, "We're seniors." And we whooped them 6-1, 6-0. And they were like,
Go
in
you.
shock.
Go you.
And they just go, whoop, and then the school's name in the finals. And I remember this is where I was really, really hothead and got really, really competitive because I remember we were playing and these guys, they hit a really good winner on us, passing shot, and one of their guys, he just screamed at the top of his lungs, "Come on!" across the entire, and we played this match at Fordham University. Dude, he screamed it for the heavens. And I remember that I hit a really good shot on game point. I think it was a forehand winner down the line, a passing shot, and I screamed even louder, "Come on!" And so I remember coming off and going over to our coach, and one of the guys had already won his match, the singles guys, and I could hear him out of the corner of my ear go, after I screamed, he goes, "Oh yeah, Richard just won a point." They kind of knew that I was gonna get really, really competitive, really into it. But I think keeping a level head was really important because I got really nervous, and that was the only match that we lost that year.
Right.
We ended up going 12-1, and this is why I loved playing high school tennis, team tennis, because you had other guys pick up the slack, and it was really funny because our I think 2 of our singles and my doubles team, first doubles, we'd all lost 1 match that season.
Yeah.
And every single time that one of us lost a match, the other ones would pick it up. And it was really fun to get to work with guys that I really, really loved. And we ended up going undefeated that season, and we won that season. It was nice. And I will say the plus of us losing that match meant it all came down to one guy, and he was a senior, and he was one of our captains. And I remember he was complaining to us the entire time in the changeover. He was like, "Dude, I keep having to come up to net, and I hate hitting backhand volleys." Guess what he won the championship with? A backhand volley. I remember he comes up.
The irony.
Do you remember the Andy Murray match against Djokovic in the final where Djokovic hits a shot and it looks like it's gonna go out?
Which final?
Wimbledon.
Oh,
and
okay.
And you can hear the crowd go, "Yeah!" And then it goes in. That's exactly what happened in the final. He hit a backhand down the line, aggressive approach shot moving up, and we all jump up, and then he keeps going, and then the shot comes in, backhand volley, cross court, done. It went, and then we jumped and cheered, and
the fake out. Fake out shots. I get it.
I don't know, but I feel just generally having a sports psychologist would have helped, especially it's the level that we were at, because your brain isn't fully mature, I feel and you're still dealing with those hothead emotions and stuff like that, and having somebody there to level you out, especially when you get to a pro level, when you're playing against guys that are at such a high level and you have to keep up and compete and pressure, and then and then rankings become so important just because of where you can get placed in the draws. Like, it's so important.
Yeah, no, I think something important that I think I should talk about is how sort of like after those first 2 years, I became actually rather calloused of a player, and I never like yelled. I was always like really mad at myself and would like mutter to myself and be like, but I never I broke 2 rackets in my life, and
I've never broken a racket,
and both of them were by accident during practice.
I've never broken a racket.
Yeah. No, it's
I'm too cheap.
No, what well. I'm cheap as well. It's not my fault.
I couldn't. Every single time that I want to, I just lift it up and then
you just tap the ground lightly. You're just like, oh, you.
No, I do the air swing.
Oh, the air swing. Oh, I've seen you do an air swinger too. I know what you're talking about. No, but when I was calloused, it was such a different issue because it was I was more consistent, but I felt like part of my drive was missing. Because I wasn't as hot-headed. And I think if I had a sports psychologist kind of going into those latter years, sort of when I'd be going against the better opponents and I'd be more experienced and my opponents would be more experienced, then I would have just had a better time. I'd be a better player now. But
yeah, for sure.
I've had, rewarding, moments. I've had a lot of really long games. I'm good at extending games and winning on extending games, but I remember I totally just had this great 2-set game against this one guy. We drove 45 minutes to this school and whooped them. Because our schools are really spread out. I don't know about yours. So all of the schools sort of we had to drive a whole day trip.
Day trip.
Yeah, to miss school, to go and play this one school that's an hour north.
We would miss the last hour of school so that we could leave for a 1.5 hour car ride across to New York City.
Yeah. No, and for us, you'd be in the bus and you'd be thinking for an hour, just staring ahead with music. The music.
Yeah.
Those edits where stuff is flashing in the background and you're staring forward. It's like that, but going to tennis games for us. And I don't know. It was a great experience. I loved sort of the camaraderie that comes with sort of working in a team environment. But man, my trials and tribulations with myself and sort of the psychology behind me, and
Did
myself.
you ever have a win streak?
No, actually, my momentum was always based off of my current opponent. Which is a fatal flaw of my game. It's just so if they're playing amazing.
Trust me, I know.
If they're playing amazing, I light up the court. I'm like,
I know. Because I started playing well, and then you started coming out with I don't even know what you were coming out with the dumbest shots in the world. But I mean, for me,
No,
my freshman year, because of reasons that I do not wish to disclose,
that's
out
okay.
of respect for others, that I will tell you off camera.
Okay.
I never won a doubles match my freshman year.
Wow.
I only won, I think, 3 matches, and those were all singles matches.
For me, it was weird.
But the thing is, it was weird for me because I really enjoy doubles and working with a partner and stuff like that. And then I come into my sophomore year, and I remember we won the first match against our rival, and I remember just looking at my coach and just going why don't you look at that? Richard finally won one. And it was
oh no.
And I finally won a doubles match. And then I was like, let's hope this momentum continues.
Oh
and then
God.
it just kept going. And my partner and I, we had such good chemistry on court, and we just kept going and going and going. And we were 3 matches in, I was like, holy cow, we're still winning. 5 matches, we're still winning. 7, we won an exhibition against a much better school, and we were like, holy cow, we're still winning. And then we get to the final, and we're 12-0, and I'm like, oh crap. And I think also in a way,
kind of the weight of that.
The pressure of I mean, I had my best friend, my best friend at the time. He came to come watch the match.
Oh, that's so nice of him.
That was also a little bit of pressure. I mean, I remember just being I also feel the need to perform, not just because I've been winning and winning and winning. It's now I've got people that I love watching me, and it's I don't know how it was for you, but let me ask you out of sheer curiosity, did you ever have a thing for your parents of like, could they show up to your matches? Like, I remember telling my mom
They could
that
not.
She was not allowed to show up until the end.
Nope. And
She wasn't allowed to come until the end.
This was like a weird thing for my parents because like I am appreciative when other people come and watch my game. I think it's fun, you know. But when it's kind of my parents, then I don't know. It's okay. I was about to say it's not a pressure thing, but it's totally kind of a pressure thing. It's a pressure thing, but it's also like an embarrassment thing.
Yeah.
Not that they're like embarrassing like directly, but just like, you know, they kind of get in my head a little. It's sort of the presentation of things.
I love having my friends watch my matches just for fun, but like when it comes to my parents, I love my parents dearly. But I remember telling my mom, like, when she would ask for times, I would give her times that was like at the end of the match. She knew.
Yeah.
She also didn't want to because she thought she was also giving pressure just by standing there. And like I remember I would give her times that was like, like when she shows up at this time, chances are it's probably going to be towards the end.
Mm-hmm.
I also felt bad making her stand around. So I would just, you know,
you
can come at the end. But just generally, I think it also does have some pressure to it because, I mean, though the thing is, your parents have a different type of investment.
That's so true, though. Like, thinking about it
when
that
it
way.
comes to your friends, they're happy for you. They like watching it just because they like supporting you. But when it comes to your parents, there's a whole nother level of like, I don't mean physical, I mean emotional investment. Because you're their child. They want to see you succeed and they want to do what's best for you. And you know,
and depending on their views sort of your interaction with tennis, you know, in general, you know, like I know that like I can't imagine for at least some people that I know's like parents consider them like spending a year or like their career, you know, playing sports, right? That's like a tricky thing on top of itself, right? It's sort of like, you know, parental opinion.
Sure.
I wonder, this is totally not a question I think we'll be able to answer, but like how sort of this develops in professional players. Do they like become really calloused about it? Do they still kind of like think about it in some way?
I'd love to see a greater like presence of sports psychologists, and we're slowly seeing it.
Yeah.
I think it was a really mature decision for Iga to hire one. I think like she was 19 when she won her first Grand Slam, and that's when she got it.
That's a lot.
Because that is
a lot.
That's a lot of pressure now to continue playing at that level. And you saw her drop it off for a little bit, and then you saw her really go through it, and then she won Rome in 2021. Then she backed it up with her 37-match win streak, including Rome this year, and that was really big. And you kind of saw pressure be a big part of her mental game. And so I think I'd like to see a greater kind of presence of sports psychologists. It also would show the sport going in a really good direction. We've seen a lot of talk about mental health, especially with, for example, like Naomi Osaka, like, and a lot of speaking out by athletes for, you know, mental health. And I think that's really important.
I for sure think that's very important. Not just to like game and everything game related aside, you know, just like you know, that's important to like continue like existing, to continue playing, you know, to like continue to be happy sort of with where you are. Like that transcends tennis.
Yeah. But I mean, in speaking of what's to come, who knows what we've got next week? We definitely don't.
Yeah, we have no clue. We're in the desert, baby.
And he's from Arizona, so he knows desert.
Oh,
and with that said, we will catch you guys next week.
Goodbye.